When we think of dangerous or abandoned places, we often imagine them as accidents of nature. But the truth is, the most volatile towns in America were built by design and destroyed by economics, environmental disaster, and systemic collapse. Across the United States, there are communities where local infrastructure has failed so profoundly that law enforcement lacks the manpower, funding, or jurisdiction to effectively patrol them. When the sun goes down, these areas fall into a jurisdictional void. Today we are looking strictly at the facts. We will trace the historical timelines of 10 American towns to understand exactly how their industries collapsed, how their populations fled, and how they became modern-day no-go zones. At number 10 is Cairo, Illinois. Geographically, it sits at the exact convergence of the Mississippi and Ohio rivers. In the mid-19th century, this was one of the most vital strategic and commercial locations in the United States. During the Civil War, General Ulysses S. Grant used Cairo as a primary supply base. By the 1920s, Cairo was a booming port and ferry town with over 15,000 residents, famous for its grand Victorian architecture. But the decline was multifaceted. First, the construction of modern highway bridges across the rivers completely bypassed the town, killing the ferry and riverboat economy. Then came the late 1960s. Cairo became the site of intense, violent racial conflict. Segregation led to boycotts of white-owned businesses by black residents. Tensions escalated into armed standoffs, arson, and riots, prompting the deployment of the Illinois National Guard. The local economy was irreparably broken. Today, Cairo's population has plummeted to roughly 1,700 people. With a decimated tax base, massive swaths of the town have been demolished or reclaimed by nature. The police department operates on a skeleton crew, and entire blocks of the historic district and former public housing areas sit virtually empty and unpatrolled at night. Just 25 miles southeast of Chicago is Gary, Indiana. Unlike towns that evolved organically, Gary was a corporate creation, founded in 1906 by the United States Steel Corporation. It was built to be the ultimate industrial city. By 1960, Gary was thriving, reaching a peak population of 178,000. But in the 1970s, the American steel industry faced a crisis. Restructuring, automation, and a surge in foreign steel imports led to massive layoffs. U.S. Steel went from employing 30,000 workers in Gary to fewer than 5,000. This economic sudden stop triggered severe white flight, taking much of the city's tax revenue with it. By the 1990s, Gary had earned the title of murder capital of the U.S., based on per capita homicide rates. Today, the population has halved. The city is burdened with an estimated 10,000 to 15,000 abandoned structures, including schools, churches, and entire neighborhoods. The Gary Police Department has faced deep budget cuts and severe understaffing. In vast stretches of the city, particularly in the ruined Midtown District, minor calls go unanswered at night, simply because the city lacks the active units to safely dispatch officers into the labyrinth of abandoned properties. Number 8 brings us to the Arkansas Delta and the city of Pine Bluff. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Pine Bluff was an economic powerhouse driven by cotton, timber, and its position on the Arkansas River. During World War II, the establishment of the Pine Bluff Arsenal brought thousands of manufacturing and chemical jobs to the region. However, the latter half of the 20th century saw the mechanization of agriculture, which eliminated thousands of farming jobs. Later, manufacturing plants began to shutter or relocate. As the jobs left, poverty surged. By the late 1990s and 2000s, Pine Bluff saw a massive spike in gang violence and drug trafficking. In recent years, it has consistently ranked among the most dangerous metro areas in the United States. With a shrinking tax base, the city has struggled to fund municipal services. Extensive urban blight and overgrown lots characterize much of the city's West End. Local law enforcement is often stretched to its absolute limit dealing with violent crime, leaving property crimes and night patrols in the most blighted areas largely unmanaged. South of Birmingham lies Bessemer, Alabama, known historically as the Marvel City. Founded in 1887, Bessemer grew at an astonishing rate due to the presence of all three ingredients needed to make steel: iron ore, coal, and limestone. For decades, Bessemer was a heavy manufacturing giant, producing railroad cars and cast iron pipes. But mirroring the Rust Belt collapse, the late 20th century brought the closure of the Pullman Standard plant and major restructuring in the steel industry. When the heavy industry left, unemployment skyrocketed. Today, Bessemer faces profound socio-economic challenges. Recent crime statistics frequently place Bessemer at or near the top of lists for the highest violent crime rates per capita in the country. With a population of roughly 26,000, the ratio of violent incidents, particularly assaults and robberies, strains the local police department. Due to the high volatility of certain neighborhoods, standard night patrols are incredibly dangerous, requiring a concentrated multi-unit presence rather than routine single-car beats. Directly across the Mississippi River from the Gateway Arch is East St. Louis, Illinois. In the early 20th century, it was a booming industrial center and a major railroad hub. However, its history is also marked by extreme violence. The 1917 East St. Louis race riots were among the deadliest labor and race-related massacres in American history. The city reached its peak population of 82,000 in 1950, but the second half of the century brought complete deindustrialization. The railroads consolidated and the massive meat-packing plants shut down. To make matters worse, the construction of interstate highways literally bulldozed through thriving neighborhoods, fracturing the community. By 1990, East St. Louis was completely bankrupt. The state of Illinois had to step in with a financial bailout. Today, the population is under 18,000. Entire city blocks have reverted to urban prairie. The police department has historically operated out of decaying facilities with a severely depleted roster and aging equipment. With miles of dark, empty streets and a critically low budget, covering the city at night is a logistical impossibility for the remaining officers. At number 5, we leave the urban grid and enter the Appalachian Mountains. McDowell County, West Virginia, was once the undeniable capital of coal country. In 1950, the county was home to nearly 100,000 people, producing more coal than almost anywhere else on Earth. The collapse here wasn't due to coal disappearing, but rather how it was mined. Mechanization meant machines replaced men. Tens of thousands of jobs vanished. Devastating floods in 2001 and 2002 further destroyed local infrastructure. Today, the population is under 18,000. McDowell County has been the epicenter of the American opioid epidemic, consistently recording some of the highest overdose death rates in the nation. The geography of the county makes law enforcement incredibly difficult. The Sheriff's Department is responsible for covering 535 square miles of rugged mountainous terrain, with only a handful of deputies on duty at any given time. Response times to isolated hollows at night can take hours, forcing communities to operate entirely outside the reach of the law. Camden, New Jersey, located just across the Delaware River from Philadelphia, was an industrial titan. It was the home of the Campbell Soup Company, the RCA Victor manufacturing plant, and massive shipyards that built vessels for the U.S. Navy. In 1950, the population peaked at 124,000. The loss of manufacturing in the 1960s and 70s, coupled with severe civil unrest and riots in 1971, sent the city into a freefall. By 2012, Camden had the highest violent crime rate in the United States, logging 67 homicides in a city of just 77,000 people. The situation became so untenable that in 2013, the city took an unprecedented step. It entirely disbanded the Camden City Police Department. It was replaced by the Camden County Police Department in an effort to break union contracts, lower costs, and put more officers on the street. While crime has statistically dropped since the restructuring, the scars of decades of poverty remain. Deep into the night, certain wards in Camden still suffer from systemic drug trafficking, requiring highly tactical policing rather than standard community patrols. Numbers 3 and 2 are unique. These towns aren't unpatrolled because of crime. They are unpatrolled because the government declared them unfit for human life. Number 3 is Pitcher, Oklahoma. Founded in 1913, Pitcher was a primary national center for lead and zinc mining, supplying over 50% of the lead and zinc used by the U.S. in World War I. But decades of unrestricted subsurface excavation undermined the town's foundation, and massive piles of toxic mine tailings, known as chat, contaminated the water and air. In 1983, it was declared part of the Tar Creek Superfund site. In 2006, the government issued a buyout to evacuate the remaining residents. A devastating EF4 tornado in 2008 destroyed what was left. In 2013, the town was officially deincorporated. With a population of 0, there is no jurisdiction and no police. Number 2 is Centralia, Pennsylvania. In 1962, a fire was intentionally set to burn trash in the town landfill, which was located in an abandoned strip mine pit. The fire ignited an exposed coal vein and spread through the labyrinth of underground mines beneath the town. In 1981, a 12-year-old boy nearly died when a sinkhole opened under his feet, bringing national attention to the crisis. In 1992, Pennsylvania invoked eminent domain, condemning all buildings. In 2002, the U.S. Postal Service revoked Centralia's zip code. Today, state troopers only monitor the highway perimeters. The town itself is a toxic, unstable danger zone. Finally, at number 1, we look at Bogalusa, Louisiana. Founded in 1906 by the Goodyear interest to support the Great Southern Lumber Company, it was built around what was once the largest lumber mill in the world. Later, it transitioned into a massive paper mill economy. Bogalusa has a deeply fractured history. In the 1960s, it was the site of intense civil rights struggles, marked by violent clashes between the Ku Klux Klan and the Deacons for Defense and Justice, an armed black self-defense group. Economically, As the paper industry modernized and downsized its workforce in the late 20th century, the city shed thousands of high-paying jobs. Today, Bogalusa struggles with deep systemic poverty and a severe drug epidemic. The local police department operates with limited resources in a city where tensions remain historically high. Violent crime rates are disproportionately high for a town of its size. In certain marginalized neighborhoods, the combination of generational poverty, narcotics trafficking, and underfunded municipal services creates an environment where law enforcement is strictly reactive. When the sun goes down, policing in these areas becomes a matter of triage, responding only to major emergencies, while the broader streets remain unmonitored. The story of these 10 towns is the story of American industry, its rapid rise, and its devastating departure. These areas did not become dangerous overnight. They were subjected to decades of economic abandonment, environmental negligence, and demographic shifts. When the tax base evaporates, the infrastructure crumbles. When the infrastructure crumbles, municipal services like the police and fire departments are the first to lose their capability to protect the public. These aren't just ghost towns. They are living case studies of what happens when the money leaves and the people are left to fend for themselves. If you want to learn more about the documented histories of America's forgotten cities, hit the subscribe button and check out our video on the top 10 loneliest towns in America